My wife is a second grade teacher, ready to get out of I mean, we're on the retirement side of things. A son who's getting into it. And you look at the numbers, you follow it, this system collapses. There just aren't good. You're going to have 40, 50 kids in a classroom at some point, and then we're going to say no one learns because there aren't enough teachers. And you got into it, I thought, with a brilliant argument. Let's let other folks teach. You can go to the teaching realm like my son did, or I think use it. You're a doctor. You've been a doctor your whole life. You want a second career. I'd like to teach young minds of mush and say I'll be a science teacher, biology teacher. Would make sense, but that's not what we're going to do in Minnesota, right?
No, and this isn't my idea. I didn't come
No.
up with it. This is an idea that has been offered to me by educators, okay,
Yep.
by administrators who do this. I spent time in the STMA school district at one of the middle schools and the high school last week in their Principal for a Day program. Spent the entire day
Mm.
at the school, talked to administrators, talked to students, talked to teachers. And the number one complaint that I field from educators when I talk to them is that there aren't enough of them. And it's very similar, by the way, to when I talk to people in the healthcare field, when I talk to people in law enforcement, especially law enforcement,
Yeah.
is that it's not just that we don't have enough today, it's that there's not enough in the pipeline.
Yeah.
I mean, you just talked about your wife looking at retirement, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to replace her, right? And it used to be that you had, and it's so funny because I literally have had the exact same conversation with both teachers and police officers who
Mm.
talk to me who are in the middle or towards the end of their career and talk about what it was like when they started,
Yeah.
how their competition for the spot was like 300 deep,
Yeah.
and now they can't get five people to show up, and
Yeah.
out of the five, they're lucky if one of them's qualified, right?
Yeah.
That's the situation that we're in. And so what I'm suggesting is you have all of this lived experience, which is so
Hmm.
valuable, right? You have all of this acquired skill and experience out in the community with people who have run businesses and
Mm.
succeeded in other careers. And over the course of that time, in the decades in those careers, they've acquired skills that
Yeah.
can be reacclimated to the job of teaching students in a classroom. So why aren't we providing a pathway to do that?
Well, I presume the biggest reason is the teachers union. But here's what folks should be scared into. This is as I think through this problem. Tell me if I'm wrong. We have many teachers in every school that don't teach, if you will, the basics: reading, writing, math, and sciences. The gym teachers, the art teachers, the music teachers. They've all got teaching degrees. This is what's going to happen if we don't fix this problem and let others in. And this maybe will scare them enough to let you do it. Is that people are going to say, my kid's got to learn to read, write, and do math.
Yeah.
I'll get somebody to teach my kid the oboe. Don't worry about that. And that teacher's going to be moved. That's a specialty. You got that. You're going to be. You learned how to teach. You're going to teach math. And these specialty items are going to go away because there's just so many teachers to go around. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think when it starts happening, people are going to yell and scream. They're going to say, we got to find another way. I want my kid to play, get rid of the gym. I mean, I don't know how much in your life you've used your dodgeball skills. Maybe you are. I don't know.
I'm
Not
in
ripping it.
politics, so
Oh, okay. See, that was wrong. I'm in radio. I sit alone all day. I don't use my dodgeball skills at all. But we had a good few weeks of learning how to play. That stuff's going to change if we don't watch what we're doing. And I know my wife would be mad hearing me say that, but that's what's going to happen because that's the alternative, right? If you don't get any more teachers in the ones we have to move around the place to get the job done.
so the
But
the argument that I have encountered from a lot of teachers and people who regard themselves as allies of teachers has been, well, we can't do that because you would be quote unquote lowering the standard for what a teacher needs to be and how they need to be able to operate and what they need to know if you were to allow people later in life to kind of transition or supplement their
Mhm.
existing income by coming into the classroom. And I reject that argument on a couple of fronts.
Okay.
One is that argument presumes that the existing standard is merited, and I would call that into question. Okay,
All right. That's fair enough.
for a wide variety of reasons, both in terms of the outcomes we're seeing from our public education system, and also the economic protectionism and the politics that's baked into the cake of how the teachers union does business. I am not going to allow anyone to pretend that Education Minnesota is not a cartel that exists for its own sake and that makes its decisions and sets its priorities for the purpose of perpetuating its own existence. That's what they are. That is beyond argument. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to have a conversation that acknowledges that fact rather than trying to tiptoe around it. So that those standards are, in my view, largely abused in order to box people out, in order to funnel them through their preferred institutional process so that they can maintain control over the
Sure.
education system. And we've seen the results. But the other reason why I reject that argument is because, it's kind of like arguing that we ought to, under the law, prohibit the use of spare tires. If you get a flat on the side of the road, the only appropriate response to that is to have somebody who's trained and certified come out and put a brand new full-size tire on your
Yeah.
vehicle before you can proceed. No, we recognize that in emergent, urgent circumstances, you need a temporary solution that gets the job done until you can fix the underlying problem. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not
I love
saying
that analysis.
I'm not saying replace the,
Yeah.
the current system with a bunch of folks who we recruited off the street to come in and teach that day. That's how it's being portrayed by a lot of these folks, because that's how they have to portray it in order to argue against it. The reality of what I'm arguing for is that we need to have a mechanism for meeting today's need, the urgent need for more teachers in the classroom right now. And then when you have that stopgap, then you can go and address some of these larger systemic reasons why there are so few people who are interested in this job.